Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. I love to do all things home decor and DIY on a budget. So for today's video, I had put together some oldie but goodies as well as newer farmhouse DIYs compilation style. So let's get crafting. So for the first project, I took a piece of foam board from Dollar Tree. I measured it out to be as long as I wanted. I had this scrap piece, so it was perfect width-wise. I just wanted to cut it down lengthwise. So after I cut it down with a utility knife, I did take these square dowels that I have used since the beginning, and I still love them. I marked one piece for the top and then put a piece side by side, marked it, and then I took the dowel at the top. I marked where the dowel would stop as well as on the bottom, and then I just took my measuring tape. I measured how long the side pieces would be, measured those out, marked them, took them to my little mini miters haul, which is also linked down below in my Amazon favorites, and that's where you'll find these square dowels in the description box. So cut them down, stain them with some Jacobine, and then I had these leftover blinds. I also marked those and then cut those down as well. After I had those cut down, I just laid them on top of my project to make sure that they would fit nicely. And I wanted this to look like faux shiplap. So once I have them laid out to make sure that they'll fit, I went ahead and I just glued them down with a little bit of hot glue. I then just kind of sanded them to make them look a little bit old. I printed off Get Naked, cut them out because I wanted this to be long ways instead of side by side. Taped them down to where I wanted them. I actually just taped them together so that they would stay. And then I took some graphite paper as usual, put that under my lettering, and then just traced it out. After I traced it out, I went ahead and I used a Sharpie and I went over the lettering. Once the lettering was complete, then all you have to do is put the frame on. I start with either the top or the bottom, and I then do the sides and then the bottom or top. After that, you just glue down a sawtooth hanger. I took a ruler to make sure that it was in the middle. And that quick and easy, you have a high-end looking bathroom sign. When I made this, a lot of my subscribers from the beginning love this DIY, so I thought that I would bring it to my newer subscribers. I did want to also mention that I love this sign and it is still up in my bathroom. So if you guys love Dollar Tree DIYs like I do, then I would love it if you would click the subscribe button and then tap the bell and all to be notified every single time I upload and become part of the family. And don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. So for the next project, we're going to be doing a mirror windmill, and this is pretty good size. This is another one of my projects from early on in my YouTube venture. But anyway, I just took these mirrors from Dollar Tree, and they are the ones with the plastic. I take some painter's tape and I just lay that down in the middle and then run my knife around so that way the mirror is protected. After I cut it, I just go ahead and I pull that excess off. Make sure that your pieces are nice and like they're cut really good before you pull it all the way up, because you will pull that tape up and you want that part to be covered. So originally I had cut a blade out of these placemats and it was a little bit too small, so I did just go back, cut a bigger one, and then I went ahead and cut out 8 pieces like this, the exact same size. After I had them cut out, I just kind of played with the ends of them so that they weren't so straight, and then I flipped my mirror over and I basically mark the back like you would cut a pizza. Once I have it marked, I go ahead and I mark all my blades so that way they're all sitting the same length, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, then you can see what I'm doing here. And then I just go in the middle of each of these lines. I put a dab of hot glue on the back as well as on the placemat and glue them all down. I then just took 8 pieces of the thick floral wire and I kind of bend them. And then once I have them all laid out, I go ahead and I glue them down. So once I have these glued down, and this part was a bit tricky, it doesn't come out absolutely perfect, but as I always say, I'm not looking for perfection, so it is what it is. But I go ahead and just spray paint the whole thing with my hammered spray paint that you guys have seen me use a million times. I take my natural sponge and some Elephant Waverly chalk paint, and I just dab all the way around the edge of the mirror as well as all the way around the blades and the metal pieces. So before I continued with my painting, I wanted to put the hanger on it because I didn't want to mess the paint up. So I just glue that hanger down. There's no need to nail it in because this is really light. And then I go ahead and go back to dabbing on this Elephant Waverly chalk paint. Once I had the elephant done, then I go back in with the white Waverly chalk paint. And I always tell you guys, but I'm sure there's new people, the elephant is just going to tone that silver down, and then the white is going to bring it out and really make it look like galvanized metal. And I'm totally impressed with this technique. I get so many messages saying how good this looks and how much it looks like galvanized metal. And if you go a little bit crazy like I always do with the white, just go back in with some elephant and you can touch up the white parts and tone the white parts down as well. So I wanted this to have a little bit of rust on there, so I did just take my sponge in the middle with the rust, and then on the edges of the blades I do take a paintbrush, and you can do that as little or as much as you like, and then you take the tape off, and that is it for that one. So here is another sign. I did basically the exact same thing for the first sign. I cut it down. I measure out my frame pieces, and then I go ahead and cut them as well as stain them with Jacobine. So after I have all that done, then I'm going to just take my ruler and again make sure that everything is even, because sometimes I tend to cut a little bit too short or too long, if that makes sense. So I have been just going back and measuring them again to make sure that they are the correct length and width. So once I have those all marked out, then I go ahead and I take some graphite paper, and like I have on the screen, I printed out the word coffee in the font and the size that I liked. I traced them on this piece of foam board, and then I cut it out with my utility knife. I have a utility knife and this smaller knife. The utility knife is really good to get like the longer parts of the letter, and then this smaller knife I go in on the smaller parts. And the best way that I found to do this is kind of just to chop it, so that way when you flip it around on the back you can see where you were trying to cut, and then you just run your utility knife around those marks and then it should pop right out. This does take a little bit of time, so I just always put a little show on or YouTube and watch that while I'm doing stuff like this. And then once I have everything cut out, I do just go around the edges, get those rough edges off. I put a D hook on the back. I spray painted these again with my hammered spray paint, and then take a brush, and instead of this looking like galvanized metal, I wanted it just to look like rusty metal. If you go in a coffee shop and you see these signs, then you'll know where I got my inspiration. But after I did that, I glued them all down again, up and down instead of side to side. So you can do it side to side or up and down. And that is it for that one. I'm absolutely in love with this one. This one is also still up in my kitchen right next to my coffee pot. So next we're going to do this little tray, this little, I don't know what you want to call it, a jar, and this cotton picture. And I am going to start with my favorite stain, Jacobine, and stain that little tray, the entire thing. I then just take some white Waverly chalk paint and I paint the circle on this square decor piece, and then once that is dry, while it's drying, I take my chip brush and some white Waverly chalk paint, and I just dry brush all the way around it. I felt that it was just a little bit too plain, and I didn't have to do much to this one anyway, so I figured that I would just bring out those lines with some dry brushing. And of course, if you've been around, then you know that I love to do this technique. It just really makes the piece feel finished. So I went on my computer, I Google searched like a cotton stem, and I found the one that I really liked. I cut it out. I take my graphite paper and I go ahead and I trace all the way around this I trace this entire piece of cotton. I then take my black paint pen and I just go over what I had just traced. I like this technique a lot because it gives me more control than if you were to try to stencil, find a stencil and then stencil it on. So I just find it quicker and easier to do it this way. And then I dry brush all the way around the circle. And then I make 2 simple bows. You guys have seen my bow trick in previous videos. I glue a jute bow onto a buffalo check bow, and then I just glue that to the left hand side. It's always your preference where you want to put your bow, but I thought that it looked really cute in this corner. Next, we're going to work on this little jar. I just start by trying to take this sticker off. Basically, it's a sticker, but I think that the words are actually printed on here and then a sticker over top, which makes no sense to me, but when I was trying to remove it, that's what it looked like it was, but can't really be too sure. But I just scraped it off, and then I took these rub-on transfers from Dollar Tree. I cut out the word Farm Fresh, and then I just stuck those on wherever I wanted them. And I didn't want this to be perfect because on Farmhouse Decor it's not perfect, so I just lay them down and I transfer them. So that is it for that one, quick and easy. So moving back to our little tray, I do take this stencil that I got from Chalk Couture. I lay it down and I just take some white Waverly chalk paint and I transfer this chicken onto the tray. I then just pull it off and I take some hot glue right around the inside edge and some jute cord, jute twine, whatever you like to call it, and I just go ahead all the way around the inside and I just glue that jute all the way around just to make it a bit more finished and fancy. Like I said before, or like I say all the time, I just felt like it was missing something, and I wanted this to kind of be really simple and easy, but still look professional like you would buy it out of a store. So I thought that the jute really fit, and then took some white Waverly chalk paint and my chip brush, and I dry brushed all the way around the edges as well as the inside edges and around those little handles, just to bring out those details, if you know what I mean. So once I did that, then this project was all finished. And I love this like up on a shelf, or you could even put a command strip and then have a nice wall decor piece. So next we're going to work on this monogram picture, this farm fresh tag, as well as another chicken tag. I really love these. They're on my gallery wall, as you can see. So I think just by using little decor pieces like this, it can really make a space feel complete. So let's jump right into those DIYs. So I start by having a frame from Dollar Tree. This was a canvas. I had already took the canvas off from a previous project. If you need to take it off, you can use a knife or a staple pull the staples off and take the canvas off. I then just take, again, my favorite stain, Jacobine, and paper towel, and I just stain the entire frame. I wasn't really too worried about the back side of this because you're not really going to see it, but I did worry about the front and the inside. I then just take some large popsicle sticks, some white Waverly chalk paint, and I paint all the popsicle sticks. So while that's drying, we are going to work on this little tag I got from Dollar Tree back at Christmas time. I do just take some white Waverly chalk paint and I paint that entire thing as well. So once that is drying, I go back to the monogram picture and I just take some hot glue on the edges of my popsicle sticks. I stand it up to make sure that the large popsicle stick is in line with the top of this frame, and then I just work my way down it, gluing the popsicle sticks down as if this was shiplap, or I guess shiplap is the look I was going for, and you don't really need much hot glue. I think it's easier just to glue the edges of the popsicle sticks, but it's up to you. I then went on my computer, printed off a N for my last name, and then took my piece of graphite paper and traced that on there. I then take my black paint pen, surprise, surprise, once again, and I just go over what I had just traced. Now, the easiest way to do this is just kind of hold down your popsicle sticks even with the next when you're going over this with your paint pen, because of the lines in the popsicle sticks. It can get a bit tricky, but it is easy if you just go ahead and hold them down. So this letter had some detailing in it, and I first went in with a fine point paint pen, and then for the detailing I did use my ultra fine, and I do get these paint pens right at Walmart in the craft section. So once my letter was done, I took some greenery, again from Walmart. I always get all my floral usually at Walmart just because you get more bang for your buck. But if you find a floral from Dollar Tree that you like, go ahead and use whatever floral you like. So I just start by pulling all the greenery off the pick, and then I just take the pieces and I kind of lay them out to make sure that they are how I want them, just because on a pick they're shaped differently, and then I glue a wreath all the way around. So for this tag, I do actually stencil on. Like I said previously, I'm not really comfortable with this when they're not adhesive, just because they tend to bleed, but for time's sake, I tried to start with stenciling it, and then it just didn't come out how I want, so I did go ahead and trace that on, and I had a stencil Farm Fresh eggs, and I am going to use a few different Farm Fresh eggs for this one just because of the size of this tag. I had to kind of improvise, and I didn't use eggs. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but I traced on the fresh. I went over it with a white paint pen, and then I took this cow not rub on transfer, this cow stencil and stenciled it on. I then went to the smaller tag and I have another stencil and I did just stencil on the chicken. So for the smaller tag, I go in and I just dry brush around the edges. You guys know that I love this technique, like I just said, and I do the same thing for this larger tag. The larger tag I use white Waverly chalk paint, and for the smaller tag I use ink Waverly chalk paint. So for this Farm Fresh one, I just went in with a small paintbrush and some white Waverly chalk paint, and I like to connect my letters just because I feel like it makes it look a bit more finished. And then for the Fresh, my white paint pen was not doing it justice. I felt like it needed to look a bit brighter, so I did just go over that word with that same paintbrush. I then take some jute twine and some painter's tape. I put the tape on the end so that my beads can slide through much more easily, and then I go in and string a few unfinished wood beads, and then I tie it to the top of this tag, and this is going to act as your hanger. You can just put a jute hanger if you like, but I feel like it makes it look more finished with the beads. So moving on to the next project, I take this square decor piece, I take that Good Morning round piece off of it, and I just sand down where the screws went, and then take my favorite brush. These are linked in my Amazon favorites, and some white Waverly chalk paint. I paint the background and the circle. I then take a piece of buffalo check scrapbook paper, and I measure this square, and then flip it around. I put my ruler and just mark where it needs to be cut, and then take my paper cutter and I cut that down to size. I tend to like to cut these a little bit larger just to be sure, because you can always cut more off, but you can't add more unless you want to get another piece. But I hate to be wasteful, so I cut it to size, take my glue stick, and I just go ahead and glue that down. I then glue some jute all the way around the edge of the front, and then take a lighter to it because I hate when you have those little flyaways, and then take my chicken stencil once again and then just stencil that on. I love to show you guys how you can use the same stencil for different pieces and make them look completely different even though you're using the same stencil. So once I have this all stenciled on, I just pull that back. Look how beautiful that is. And then take my chip brush and some ink Waverly chalk paint, and again just go right around the edge with this chalk paint. And I took my pliers and I just pulled those screws that were holding this together initially, and then take a good bit of hot glue and then just glued that right to the middle. So that is it for this video, you guys. I hope you enjoyed all 10 of these DIYs compilation style. Please let me know in the comments down below which was your favorite. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys next time. Bye!